Hi, I'm John Ruggiero. Welcome to this episode of New Jersey Paranormal. With me today is my friend and psychic medium, Connie Elek from JJ Elek Realty. How are you, Connie? Good to have you here.
Wonderful to be here, John.
I've known Connie for many years. Connie supports a lot of our events that we do in Woodbridge. But Connie is also, like I said, a psychic medium. Connie, you know me, I'm a skeptic. You've known me for years. I believe, but I also have a lot of questions, and I come to you with a lot of my questions, and you answer them for me. But I am very interested in mediums and how it starts and what happens along the way. So again, this is my curiosity here. When did it all start for you? How old were you when you noticed that you could communicate with spirits?
Well, the first time that I consciously remember was when I was 2 years old. I had a invisible dog, or a friendly dog that I used to feed scraps under the table.
Did the dog have a name?
I don't remember the name, I'm sorry, I just don't. But they would always tease me about my dog, because there was always a pile of scraps under wherever I sat to have breakfast, lunch, dinner, or snacks. After that, I was 7 years old when I truly was getting visions and dreams, and a lot of spirits would come, and it was very confusing. And you would go to talk, I would talk to my mother or talk to my father, and you were always met with skepticism and, well, you have an active imagination or a vivid imagination. And it was very troubling for a child, because sometimes the dreams were ones of accidents or death.
Oh, wow.
And at that point, they didn't want to hear it. They would get very, very upset with whatever information I had. And a lot of times, just as a child, and I know that there are children out now that are young that have these dreams, and they can't talk to their parents, or they can't talk to a teacher or an adult because they're frightened. They don't want to be told that they're lying, or that they're crazy, or that they're nuts, in plain English.
Well, that's the thing too. When it started happening to you, in your mind, did you think that they could be imaginary friends, that maybe you were just...
Absolutely, yes. I thought that they were imaginary friends, because there were little children that would come and play, and you know, a lot of the children that you see that play quietly by themselves are not by themselves. They have friends with them. It's just that the adults around them generally can't see who's with them at all.
Were these spirits that were in the home that you were occupying, or were they from...
They were from all over.
Somewhere else?
They would just gravitate, because spirits generally do gravitate to whomever can see, hear, or smell, or listen and play with them, because especially children that died young, they're always looking for that playmate. They're always looking for a group of children to play with, so that they're included and not excluded.
Do you remember any specific spirits from the beginning? Was there a reoccurring spirit, man or woman, child, that would come visit you often in the beginning?
No, there were just a lot of them. There were a lot of children. There were some adults, but I just don't remember the names. It was a while ago.
Again, going back to your parents, did they ever mention taking you to a psychiatrist or...
No, they just thought I had a very active imagination. And I remember my father at different times, he would just say, how do you come up with this stuff? Where do you come up with this? And it's like, because I had, there were questions that I would have, and they had no answers for me. But there were times where I would know something was going to happen. And when I would tell people, and it would happen, they thought, oh my God, she must be a witch or something, because she said this was going to happen and it actually happened. So you end up losing a lot of friends that way as a teenager, because they were afraid to walk with you or talk with you, because if you saw something and mentioned it and it happened, they thought for whatever reason you brought it on. So it was very difficult.
See, that, again, early on, before I really got into the paranormal and started doing research and everything, my impression of a medium was based on the movie Ghost. I would sit and watch Whoopi Goldberg, and I thought that's the way it was for mediums, that they would be somewhere and they would be an open channel for spirits, and that they would just sense somebody like you, and even here now, that they would pop up over there, and they would start talking to you and saying, I'm here, I have could you talk to me? Could you help me with this? But that's not the way it happens?
Well, everybody is a little different. I find that places where, if you want to use the word spirits or ghosts, hang out, funeral parlors, a lot of times they hang around there, and when they find somebody like myself that comes in, they usually try to contact you or touch you or get your attention so that you can give a message to the loved one, especially if there's people in the casket and you have people that are grieving. And I recall not too long ago that experience had happened to me. I was at a local funeral parlor, and it was a neighbor that had died, and someone in the viewing and the visiting friends was also getting ready to pass, and one of her relatives had come over and really wanted me to talk to her, to tell her not to be afraid, that she was going to be okay, that she would be met by loved ones. And I just kept, I didn't know the woman, I wasn't about to approach her with that kind of information. For me, I really don't want to do things like that because it's an invasion of privacy. So I have boundaries. If I'm doing an event and I'm asked specific questions, yes, I'll be happy to answer any questions that I can, but I don't go up to people and tell them things that are going to happen because it's problematic for me because of the invasion of privacy.
Well, that's the thing, too. I won't mention anybody's name, but there are mediums on TV that you know of and I know of that will be in the food store, and they'll approach people and say, you know, your father's coming through, your mother's coming through. Does that ever happen to you where you could be down the street at the ShopRite and the woman next to you online, somebody's coming through saying, hey, could you give this person a message, and you just...
I generally block it.
Okay.
I generally block it unless it's unless somebody has a specific question. At a party a few years ago, someone had approached me and had asked about their son, and I had told the woman, I said, it was right before the Christmas holidays, and I said, just have him be very, very careful driving. Tell him not to get into a car with anybody that's been drinking. I could feel that there was a potential accident hovering around that particular person. And as it turned out, he did decline a ride with someone that had been drinking, and that person was in an accident.
But along those same lines with the spirits, because again, I'm really curious about this. In that type of situation, when the spirit's trying to communicate with you, to get a message to someone who, say, is 5 feet away from you, how do you handle that on your end? Do you just block them out so that the communication stops?
Unless
or do they just go away?
Unless they say their danger is imminent, then I would generally just say, sorry, I don't do that, I'm not going to do that. And then they just go away.
Okay. But you don't see them, like I said in the movie Ghost, you don't see the spirits as me sitting here in front of you communicating. Do you see them like that, or sometimes? Sometimes
yes and sometimes no. Sometimes they come in as a voice, sometimes they come in as a shape, sometimes it's a feeling or an appearance. I'll get an idea of a size. Especially if it's a grandmother, a small grandmother, I'll usually say I think it's a grandmother, but tiny little, under 5 feet, and then it's usually I'll get gestures, I'll get finger pointing, or they'll talk with their hands. So at that point, then I try to pinpoint a name, or I'll ask for a birthday or an approximate birthday, because it helps zero in on that particular person. And if they have a specific message, and a lot of times people die and the messages don't get they're not received. So I had a client that had come in for a reading, because I do a lot of the card readings, and her mother had passed away in the hospital. She just didn't get there in time. So when she came to see me, it was very, very emotional. The mother came through immediately, and she and I sat and cried for the whole half hour because there was so much information the mother wanted her to know, and how much she was loved, and how much she was missed, and how sorry she was about the different things that happened when she was a child. And a lot of times people do hold on to those little hurts when they're children, and they hang on to them even when they're adults. So the mother did explain that, different times when she was a child, she was punished, and she had overreacted, and she was asking for her daughter's forgiveness. So it's very, very emotional.
And that must be the thing too, with everyone. There's a lot of things left unsaid in life.
Yes.
And when somebody passes, that remains the mystery. You always wonder. So going to people like a psychic medium, is an outlet for some to try to resolve those issues. I've been to our events. We have the group readings. We throw the big expo in Woodbridge, and I see a lot of the mediums doing the readings. There is a lot of feelings, which is understandable, a lot of tears. You would think, again, from my perspective, outsider looking in, it is therapeutic. It is a form of therapy.
Yes.
But you do have those people that are sort of psychic
junkies.
Yes, and you do have to sort of limit some people in the number of readings they get. Have you had anyone who was just too much where...
Yes, I do. I do have several clients that are that way, and I generally tell people that unless your life has changed significantly, once a year is enough, really.
Once a year?
Once a year is all you really need. Unless if there's a traumatic event, or if you've lost a job, a loved one, anything like that, or you really need some guidance, then once a year is enough. But I do have people that call every week just to kind of check in, and it's, if it's a 2-minute phone call or a 3-minute phone call, it's fine. It really is fine. They just want to make sure they're on the right track. That's okay. But then you do have the clients that will just keep going to psychic after psychic, basically looking for someone to tell them things they want to hear, not necessarily what's out there, but things that they want to hear.
Could you sense that someone has a negative energy spirit attached to them?
Generally, yes.
So you could be in a room and tell that person.
Yes.
Do you approach them or only if
they come and they ask me, if they ask me specifically? I know the Italians.
I'm Italian, by the way.
I know you are. And I don't know the symbol, but it's the evil eye or whatever.
Right.
And I've had several Italian clients that have asked whether or not they had something attached to them or evil eye.
I think I've been one of those, as a matter of fact.
And we do remove that.
Right.
And what happens is a lot of times people don't realize that negative thought forms attached to the body.
Okay.
And it's actually mental energy that adheres and forms an object and is attached to the body. So it can drag you down, it can make you feel lethargic or just troublesome more than anything else. Can use this as an example. You're driving down the road and somebody cuts you off, and you might blast something at them and call them a name. Well, that's a negative thought form that gets attached to that particular person. And I did the expo that we did in
That was about 30 people on the way here, by the way.
Sure. The snow and the ice. When we did the expo in Patterson, there was a gentleman that had approached me, and he was just covered. He was just covered with negative thought forms. And he and his wife had come over to seek me out, and they said, "We know that you can do this." And I said, "Yes, I can." And I worked on him for about 20 minutes. And I'm not going to tell you, but what I see, I can see knives. I can see the pitchforks, or I did a hairdresser, a gentleman that had a shop down in South Jersey, and he had all women that were working for him, and he was full of rat tail combs and scissors and razors, and because he would make a comment, and whether it was sexist or not, it didn't really matter. They would take offense, and they would kind of grab him. So when he came to see me, he just kept saying, I feel kind of funky. I don't know what's going on. And it's like, oh yeah, his fields were really messed up.
Well, that's what happened to me. I mean, I'll mention it here. I had gone through a lot of personal issues last year, and it just seemed to be negative thing after negative thing, and it was just, it was a downward spiral. And I did feel like there was something attached to me, and you know me.
Yes.
I'm a big-time skeptic, but I was at the point where I did come to you for assistance and ask you, is there something going on? Is there something attached to me? Is there some kind of negative attachment? And you did help me with that, and I did feel better, whether that was psychologically for me or if it really did happen that it was removed. I did feel better, and I thanked you for that.
Yes.
Because there was a lot going on at that time. We talked about visions of the future.
Yes.
And things that you have said to people that to warn them.
Yes.
That's part of the psychic medium process. Does that happen often? What type of things have you experienced where you've actually warned people of things that were going to occur?
It's there are times where people will ask me a specific question or will ask me about a family member, And if I feel something, I will tell them. I will absolutely tell them. I think I've discussed with you before, when I was 12, I had a dream that my grandfather, my mother's father, was going to pass. And I came downstairs, woke up, came downstairs to tell my parents. My mother was very upset and slapped me and had told me, not to speak of those things. And within a week, he had passed. He had kidney failure and had passed. And there are times if I'm doing parties or if I'm doing readings for people. There was one I did in August a few years back for a group of ladies down the shore. And one woman had asked me about her husband. And I'm an empath also, so I'll feel an area of the body where there's a problem. So I had said heart or lungs, and she said yes. And I said to her in a flip way, and I didn't really mean it to be a flip way, but I said to her, make sure his insurance premiums are paid. Mm-hmm. So she looked at me and she says, what does that mean? And I said, make sure his insurance premiums are paid. So she says, well, how much time does he have? And I said, by Christmas. And it was just the information had come in so crystal clear that, and she asked the question. Right. So I felt compelled to give her the answer that I was getting. And I had found out later that, yes, he died a day or two before Christmas. But the good thing about it is she was able to prepare. She was able to get all of the things that she needed to get through in taking care of prior to his death. So it was a bonus, and it was a benefit to her.
Well, you had mentioned to me when we were talking the other day about a surgery where you thought it wasn't a good day to have the procedure, and then it turns out something did happen. Along those same lines of being an empath, I've been with you in buildings where I ask you to walk through and I get your impression, and you actually do cough, or you tell me what you're feeling. Those are the spirits that are there, or is that what happened to the spirits that were there? Are they still feeling those things in death?
It's a combination. If we're going through, like the one property that we had visited where the woman was strangled,
right.
I was experiencing, I could see the woman being choked. I could experience the woman's, her throat being constricted, the vertebrae snapping. I could feel the fact that she wasn't having any oxygen coming to her lungs and she was dying. So yes, I was coughing and gagging because it was a natural reaction. Once I left that area and I took a glass of water, a sip of water, ate something, I was able to get rid of that particular energy. But it does happen. I did the walkthrough at Parker Press years ago,
right.
And as I had walked through, there was a soldier. He was an American, young American, that was dressed in a farm outfit, overalls, etc. And he was shot in the chest. And as he walked through me, he was saying that I can't breathe. And he kept repeating that over and over again. And his spirit walked through me, and as it walked through me, I experienced exactly what he was feeling because I couldn't breathe. And I actually staggered over to a pine tree that was at Parker Press and wrapped my arms around it just to ground myself and to get my bearings back. There was another gentleman that was with me at the time, and he didn't know what to do because he had never experienced anything like that. And he says, well, what should I have done? And I said, there really wasn't anything that you could do because the spirit had attached to me and I needed to be grounded.
Now, would you say that was a residual energy that's just there in that area, and it's not something that you could actually communicate with? That's just sort of a stain on the land type of thing? That's just an imprint? I think
it's an energy, and it is an imprint that's there. I don't know if that spirit is still there. I've been to Parker Press many times since then. But I went there the one day specifically as I walked through the gate with the intention of finding out what had happened, if there was anything of interest on that particular property, and that's what ended up happening. And there were a lot of things that happened that day. I saw two women, probably from the Revolutionary War. They were large women dressed in white, the far end of the field, and they had this big black, like a cauldron, but they were boiling sheets and they were boiling bandages for the wounded, etc. That's how they were sterilizing them and they were cleaning them. And they had this big wooden paddle that they were stirring I guess they had used lye and a bunch of other ingredients in the water to purify and to clean those strips of bandages. And
along those same lines, when it comes to spirits and you seeing spirits, Do you have the ability to assist the spirit in crossing over?
Yes, I have done that. I've done that on many occasions where they get stuck. I guess that's a good word to put it. A friend years ago, its mother had Alzheimer's and was lost. She had lost her mind for a good 20 years. And I know she and I had spoken of it. And a lot of times, once the spirit passes, they'll send a message to the loved ones. And a lot of times it'll be through a dream or a vision, and then I'm able to contact the people just to say, just want to let you know your mother, father, grandmother, boyfriend, husband, significant other passed, had this message for you. And it's a bit of closure for them, and it's really, really wonderful. And this one particular woman, there were two other ladies and myself were doing a group meditation where we were channeling the information and helping spirits that were stuck.
Okay.
And this one woman's mother had come through, and she did have a message for her, so I was able to call her.
So it is mostly unfinished business.
Yes.
It's just not that they don't know where to go or they don't know that they've passed in your experience.
Sometimes it's that too.
Okay.
Sometimes it's that too. If it's unfinished business or if they don't know they're dead, sometimes that does happen, that they really don't realize that they've passed. And I had bought a house on High Street in Woodbridge years ago, and the woman had actually died in the house.
Okay.
And I knew before I had bought the house that she had died there. It didn't bother me at all, but she would come to visit every once in a while. The lights would go on in the closet, the drawers would open, and she was always looking for something. So at one point I had said to her, because she scared the bejeebus out of my daughter, and she'd say, Mom, I hear somebody walking around, and it's like, it's okay, she's just looking for something, we'll find out what it is. And I ended up at one point saying to her, Mrs. So-and-so, you know, you don't live here anymore, you've passed, and it's okay. And she was looking for some papers.
Okay.
But that's what she was looking for.
Wait, you're a real estate agent. We
Yes,
talked about this
Yes.
on the phone the other day. You list houses, you sell houses.
Yes.
What do you do when you enter a home and you feel that negative energy? Because I'm sure you could pick up on it if you're going to list a house and you look at the property. How do you handle that?
Well, it doesn't necessarily have to be negative energy.
Okay.
It can be a positive energy. There can be a spirit that's very happy in the house and wants to stay there, as long as they have their rocking chair or view of the water or whatever it is that they're looking to retain. And as long as it doesn't, and they're not necessarily destructive. They just want to be there. They're at peace at that particular house and that property. I always will tell someone if they're looking to buy a particular house, if there's been a death in the house, because sometimes it will affect the people that buy it. A lot of times with estates, we do get that where they'll say, you know, we understand this is an estate. Did the woman or the man, did they die in the house? If they did, I will tell them, yes, they did. If I feel that there's still energy there, I will help it to be removed, because a lot of it is using sage and is using a lot of other methods that I do to ask them to move along, that they don't have to stay there. And a lot of times the people are oblivious that it doesn't bother them at all. It doesn't bother them. And they're actually excited to share their space with spirits.
I've been doing this a long time. You've had this ability for a long time. I'm sure there were days when you were younger, in your teens, in your 20s, where this really was sort of taboo to even discuss this, or you wouldn't mention it to anybody. What is the difference in your experience between then and now?
I think years ago it was very much taboo. I was raised Roman Catholic, and the teachings of the church are very important. Some things I found that as I've gotten older, it's part of who I am, and I don't deny it. I just this is what I know, or this is what I do, and I'm very pleased to be able to help all the people that I'm able to help. And I find that there are some religions that astrology is taboo, talking about spirits is taboo. It's for them, I believe, it's my personal opinion, that they have God in the box, and that God only exists for them in a specific time and place. But as we know, God is everywhere. I'm a believer. You know, there are people that are not, and I can appreciate how they feel. But for me, it's a spiritual it's a spiritual thing, and I love being able to do what I do.
Okay, real quickly, because we only have a few minutes left. I talked to you about this before, and this is my curiosity. If a spirit's in a location, did they see the location as it existed when they were alive and the time they died? Or when they talk about a haunting, can the spirit see the changes in the building in the future and the time go by?
Yes. Sometimes they're stuck in time period, and I've described it to you as like an onion skin, where the onion, because it's different time periods through time. So you may have a certain property, and I know several properties that it doesn't matter if you sell the property or you list the property, it's the same type family keeps coming back to it, whether or not there's physical violence, whether or not there's domestic violence. It seems to happen in that particular
So they're attracted
spot.
to the energy, and it's sort of...
Yes, and it continues to grow in that regard. But in regard to the question that you've asked, a lot of times what happens is they are stuck in that particular time period. Sometimes they do want to be released from it, and other times they're happy being where they are.
But some can see the changes, because you
Yes.
hear a lot about renovations being done.
Yes.
There's a house we're dealing with now that everything was fine. They did the renovations, and now all of a sudden things were stirred up. So you get the feeling that whatever was there didn't like
The
what
changes.
was going on.
Yes, exactly.
So that can happen. That was always one of the questions that I had, because I always wondered if they can see what's moving forward after the time that they pass.
Yes.
Connie, again, thank you so much for being here. You're a great friend. I've seen you in the buildings that we've been in together. I've heard nothing but good things about you when it comes to readings. I definitely recommend you to everyone that I know. Thank you for continuing to support us at the Expo. Great having you here.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming.
My pleasure, always.
Thank you for watching this episode of New Jersey Paranormal. See you next time.